A lot of expectations right there for Nolan McLean. Again, he came up, burst onto the scene last year. What about your expectations for him, Keith?
So for me, young guy, made 8 starts last year. I'm thinking, okay, 140, 150 innings. It's probably where I'd like to slot Nolan McLean. But then I'm thinking this kid could win NL Rookie of the Year with the year that he could have in 2026. But again, you don't want to put too much on his shoulders. That's why it's nice to have a guy like Freddie Peralta to be the ace, to take it off of his shoulders, because everyone wanted to give him that title of the ace of the staff. But 48 innings, 8 starts. It's a little early, right, but I think you're just trying to get him through the season while also giving him that chance to pop.
I think that's a great point that you made about Freddie Peralta, and that kind of got lost with the acquisition of Freddie because there was so much to that acquisition. But it does take a little bit of the pressure off of McLean to be the guy. He just has to be the second best guy now, right? which is a lot to ask of that guy, Nolan McLean. But he's somebody that I have just high hopes for because, as you mentioned, the Rookie of the Year, there's somebody named Connor Griffin out in Pittsburgh who's probably the top prospect in all of baseball, probably the hands-on favorite. McLean should be right there next to him, I think, at least, because he has that repertoire that you mentioned, Gary, and he alluded to it too, McLean. He mentioned the cutter, the changeup. Those are 2 really important pitches for him. I expect those pitches to take the next step in his development. We're talking about a guy who, a year ago, he was not in Major League camp, right? He was somebody who was mainly a two-way player up until fairly recently. He only threw fastballs as a college player. Right. All of a sudden, he has 6 pitches. And by the way, the fastball is actually harder now than it was even last year as he gears up for the WBC. So there's a lot to like here that I think gets lost because of the expectations. Maybe they should be even higher than we're talking about. We're cutting him a little bit of slack here because of his experience, but he deserves those high expectations.
I think one of the things you see when it comes to Nolan McLean, again, it's very early here, but he's got a very high baseball IQ, and I think part of that comes from the fact that he was a two-way player until he became strictly a pitcher. Let's welcome Todd in right now. What do you think, Todd, made Nolan McLean such a revelation late last season?
Well, I mean, I think it's a couple of things. I think the things that you guys are already touched on, he's got great stuff. I mean, but his demeanor coming up from the minor leagues, he felt like he was ready to be there. He's very confident in his stuff, but his stuff is elite. I think the other thing that made him very good last season is his ability to spin the baseball. You see the sinker here with great late movement, and it's 94, 95. It can be up to 98, 99 now with a little bit more experience. But this sweeper was something that a lot of guys didn't see coming. It looks like the fastball coming out of his hands with the big sweep. But the big difference maker for me with him is this curveball with elite spin. And when I say elite spin, we're talking Charlie Morton, Aaron Nola have nothing on Nolan McLean from the spin rate on this curveball, and it just gives him an added weapon. So I think between the fact that he is very confident, I think he, as you, Gary, mentioned, you see the numbers on the curveball, how outstanding it is, and not just that it's got good spin rate, but it's got great success rate as well. But I think him being a position player, he's alluded to the fact that he feels like he can, face a hitter knowing what it's like to be a hitter. And I think that gives him a little added bit of confidence at times. And you see him pitch really aggressively at times when you see other guys potentially nibbling when they're so young and just getting their feet wet at the big league level.
I think it does make a difference when you've been up at the plate, understanding how to pitch certain guys. I wonder, because one of the things we always talk about when it comes to guys bursting out of the scene, there are going to be adjustments that the hitters make, and then the pitcher's got to adjust back. How do you think he's going to do along those lines, Todd?
Well, I think he's already talking about those adjustments, because the fact is everybody that's going to face him this time is going to be looking for that spin, that elite spin that we just showed and we talked about. And that's why that cutter changeup combination, I think, is something that's a big advantage for him. And he's already thinking about other weapons, ways to pitch guys when he doesn't have command of the spin or when guys are sitting on it. We saw a little bit of that at the end of last season where guys started sitting on that sweeper and he had to go to the other weapons. That changeup cutter combination, I think, is a really good weapon against the lefties that could be, somebody that could be make him a little more vulnerable to the straight spin. So I think the adjustments are him already starting to do it, and the confidence that he has as a pitcher.
8 starting pitchers, when you really look at it, for 5 spots, maybe 6 spots early in the season. How do you see it breaking down, Keith?
Yeah, you have Freddie Peralta, of course, Nolan McLean, and then I just still think Sean Manaea is going to have a big year. He's a guy that can be a 2 when he's right. He was just hurt last year, and After that, I think maybe Clay Holmes slots in, and then David Peterson. Those guys kind of pitch as threes. So you have a lot of threes on this team at rest, so to speak. And then I'm wondering where Christian Scott figures into this. The Kodai Senga thing is really interesting
X
because
factor.
I don't think X marks the where is he going to fit in on the X mark the spot here. But can they rely on him at all to give him 20 starts, 30 starts, 10 starts? I don't think they know that, and I don't think they're planning a 6-man rotation around Senga's availability. I think he's going to pitch if he earns the spot to pitch on this team.
Right. Well, listen, as we've spoken about, they've got Jordan Tonga, they've got Christian Scott as guys who certainly provide depth here and who could end up in the rotation. I'm wondering, Todd, how you see it playing out.
Well, look, I agree with everything Keith was talking about right there, and especially the piece regarding Kodai Senga. A lot of things that I read, a lot of the pundits are acting like David Peterson is the one that's fighting for that depth spot and maybe number 6 trying to fight his way on the rotation. I mean, the reality is he had a rough end to the season last year, but for the first half of last year, he's one of the best pitchers in all of baseball, not just on this staff. And I think he deserves to have a spot in that rotation. I think he and Shamania are really kind of a 3 and 3A right now. And then it's going to be interesting to see if Kodai Senga can return to form. He certainly seems to be confident that he can. If he does, then it makes the choices that they're having to make a little more interesting. But I see David Peterson and Shamania in this rotation. Clay Holmes, I think, is also that 5th guy. And then the 1-2 at the top with Kodai Senga being the swing man.